In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth, what a beautiful planet. According to human measures, it is a big object. Still, light needs only a fraction of a second to pass it. Is that the reason why we have problems to think on a big time scale? Let's start from the Earth and zoom out. Note that this and the following pictures could not show everything at the right scale because of the enormous distances in outer space. Light needs more than a second to travel from the Moon to the Earth. When we look at the Moon, we see it as it was more than a second ago. Let's zoom out further. Distances are now becoming so large that we cannot imagine them anymore. Therefore, this is the last picture in which they are shown. The light needs about 8 minutes to travel from the Sun to the Earth. The light from the most distant planet in our solar system, Neptune, needs about 4 hours to reach us. But this is only the start. Let's zoom out till we see the nearby stars. The planets of our solar system are no longer visible. The light needs several years to travel from those stars to us. So, when Adam for the first time looked up to the nightly sky, he saw things that were already several years old. We conclude that when God created the heavens and the earth, He created at least some years of history. But this is not the whole story. We can zoom out further again. The nearby stars form only a very small fraction of the stars in our galaxy. When astronomers see clouds of gas moving in the neighborhood of a black hole in the center of our galaxy, then they see events that happened about 25,000 years ago. If those events of 25,000 years ago that we see now were also created by God, then God created the universe apparently with a history of many thousands of years. But we are still not at the end. We can zoom out further till we see the nearby galaxies. Each blurred spot in this picture is a galaxy on its own. The light from most of those galaxies has traveled millions of years to reach us. We see that God created not only a huge amount of space, but also an enormous amount of time. What if we zoom out even further? Each dot now is a galaxy. Together they form the largest structure known to man, the cosmic web. Here we look back in time hundreds of millions of years. We must conclude that those large structures were created by God, together with billions of years of time. What a powerful God! Psalm 8 says, "When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you care for him?" If we zoom out even further, things change. Even further back in time, the universe looks different from how it looks now. The further we go back, the more different it looks. Therefore, in this picture, the horizontal axis now shows the time and only the vertical axis shows space. If we try to look further and further back in time, we arrive at a moment that we cannot go further because the universe was not transparent for light anymore. At that time, the universe was so small, so hot and so dense that light was absorbed very fast. This is what can be concluded from direct observation. But using tested theories from physics, we can calculate how the universe looked like even longer ago, up to the moment that the universe becomes so small, so hot and so dense that we arrive in circumstances where the theories have not been tested. It looks as if at that moment the universe was only a very small fraction of a second away from the point that it was concentrated in a single point. This picture again shows our universe with both space and time. Of course, it is a very bad approximation of the real universe, but maybe it gives an idea of how God sees our universe. Now there is a discussion where it is asked where and at what location and at what time the universe was created. My point is that I think that this is not the right question. A picture cannot be created within the picture. What do you think? Is it reasonable to draw a dot in this picture and say there and then was the creation of the whole universe? Again, another view of our universe. I think that God created not only our space but also our time. Therefore, I do not understand why people think that the creation took place within our time. Maybe you now wonder how to interpret the week of the creation, which is mentioned on several occasions in the Bible. I think it is not necessary to take these days only symbolically. They may describe some days in God's work, but we should not try to place those days somewhere in our time, in our history. Another reason why I think that the creation of the stars cannot be placed within one day on our timeline is Einstein's theory of relativity. It tells us that two events at distant locations can be called simultaneous only within a margin. The margin is of the order of the time needed for light to travel from one location to the other one. So, if the margin is already much larger than one day, it makes no sense to try to place it within one day on our timeline. So, even if we accept that God created the heavens and the earth in 6 real days, we can agree that those days cannot be found in our history, but that they are to be placed on a different timeline. If that is true, several questions that are being debated for several decades now lose their meaning, because they are based upon the wrong assumption that the creation can be found within our timeline. We conclude that what modern science tells us about the development of the universe and the earth, and what the Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 1 about the creation, do not contradict each other. They are talking about different subjects. Science cannot help us to understand how God created the heavens and the earth. The Bible does not tell us which history was created by God for our universe and for our earth. If the Bible does not tell us the history that science must find in the creation, and if science is unable to research the process of the creation, it makes no sense to continue this debate. Let's accept both what science tells us and what the Bible tells us. Let's enjoy this wonderful creation and praise the Lord.